as I breathe in, inspiring the sweet breath of life. I am grateful to be and to be here and to be in community as one with each of you and all of you. All the power, all the knowledge is within me. I allow stillness to bring clarity, knowing that my connection with Divine Mind is more than an aha moment, but it's the result of patient and persistent practice of spiritual study, prayer, and meditation. So as I relax into allowing, know that insight will be revealed to you, to me, at the perfect time. And I can have faith in that wisdom. Let's just now be in the stillness for a few moments. I say thank you. I'm so grateful for the blessing and the opportunity of this moment. Amen. I was praying for my vision to improve so I'd see whether or not I needed these. I could have increased the font, but I want to keep it challenging. Welcome to August. August is special in my family. My mother was born on the 1st, and my two brothers were born on the 2nd and 3rd. I always thought that was a curious aspect of my experience. So happy birthday to my brother Craig. It's my honor to be here to kick off the exploration of the two themes for August. One we've already affirmed, I'll mention it again, but also the power of will as we explore the the 12 powers of man, which are all the power of the Christ. Just understanding it through the lens of different human perspectives. The power of willpower. And the affirmation is, I choose my good based on spiritual understanding. Will is the ability to choose, to lead, or to decide. The disciple that represents it is Matthew. He represents the decision-making part of the brain. The color is silver. And the location is the front of the brain, which is where higher order thinking happens, higher consciousness, imagination. Not the base of the brain, where more primitive functions take place. You know, that thing that keeps you breathing, whether you think about it or not. The thing that causes you to recoil in fear if you see a lizard approaching you. Not everyone, by the way. I'm making my peace with snakes as I get further along in my journey. I decided not to give in to the habit of thinking that I should be afraid. I'm respectful. I don't want to mess with the snake. The snake really doesn't want to mess with me. But I'm giving up that Genesis prejudice against the poor creature. That's a change. I embrace change as a gift of tomorrow. However, that's a little bit of a trap, because I heard in the song from Annie that tomorrow is always a day away. So I'm never going to get the gift of change unless I can bring it into the moment. So the practice of receiving the gift is to focus on the opportunity of the moment, and that is the title of my talk. I wrote a little poem. Regrets of deeds done and worries of what may come are the thieves of my presence to the opportunity of the moment. In truth, there is only now. And Jesus encouraged us to focus on the opportunity of the moment. In Matthew 6:34, he says, "So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today." I like that. Trouble is kind of a fluid word, but it's like, right now, we got enough. One step at a time. One day at a time. One moment at a time. I want to talk more about change, and I want to start by myth busting. The myth is this: people don't like change. This is a myth. People not only like change, including you, your people, you pray for it. You pray for change constantly. You pray for better health. You pray for better work, better pay, better situations, better relations. You pray for peace. We pray for all the things that we aspire to build up to creating heaven on earth. And most of those things require change. Occasionally we get into a really good spot and we're like, we pray for it not to change. We're like, could this just last forever? Could there never be a last Annie's cinnamon roll? They're good. You can get them at Costco sometimes, and we have them on holidays. Eves, or New Year's Day, Christmas Day. My brother's birthday, perhaps? I don't know. Maybe today is the day. I do have some in the fridge, but you get a chance, but it's like, yeah, then they're delicious and then they're gone. And it's a good thing that they're gone, because it's too much of a good thing. I get back to praying for better health. But we want things to be better usually. And better means different, and different means change. But not only do we want change in these little circumstantial aspects of living, we wouldn't even be here if it weren't for change. Stephen Hawking, in A Brief History of Time, discussed how the expanding universe was absolutely essential for the creation of life. Not only the expansion of the universe, which is the increasing of entropy for us chemical engineers, right, Howard? Entropy is just the state of order of things. And so as entropy increases, as things get more disordered, it creates the chaos that allows creation. And that is why we're here, because of change. Change is ubiquitous. And as I wrote that word, I thought, are you using big words just to sound fancy? And I thought, well, I had this little discussion with myself. I said, does everybody know what ubiquitous means? And I'm thinking most people do, but just in case you don't, it means existing or being everywhere. If something is ubiquitous, it's just everywhere. Like subways. They're ubiquitous. Not the ones you ride in, the ones you eat sandwiches from. You know, they're everywhere. And apparently in Canada, Tim Hortons is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. They're just a block away. So now you're never going to forget ubiquitous if you see a Subway or a Tim Hortons. Omnipresent is another word. And we know this word. We know this word because that's how we feel about our Creator. That our Creator is everywhere at all times, including in and as us. Change is also inevitable. And it's not like everything's going along and then there's change. It's like it's just always change. Change is the normal aspect of things. Nothing is ever the same. The next moment will be different than this moment. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I tried to learn how to say this name. Heraclitus. Some people say Heraclitus. But the Greeks say Heraclitus. Because you know, there's also a hero, Heracles, that you might know of from Greek history. So Heraclitus. And what he observed is nothing is permanent except change. So if we do like change, why are we so confused to say, I don't like change? Because I've heard that many, many times in my life, usually when I'm trying to pressure somebody to do something. And I've usually said it myself, especially when somebody's trying to pressure me to do something. So what is it that we don't like? And I'm not sure, but I'm going to take a guess that it has something to do with discomfort. You know, we really don't like discomfort that much, because whenever we feel discomfort, we try to move to something more comfortable. But most of us that have gone through growth know that most growth is associated with some level of discomfort at some time. Nikki, my wife, is famous for saying that we actually change when the discomfort of trying to stay the same becomes less than our perceived discomfort of making the change. She's wise. Look who she married. I don't know if I'm ever going to change. So, if it's not actually change that's the root of our discomfort, then what is it? And it might just simply be our lack of faith. It may be our concern over the perceived consequences of change that may or may not occur in the future, and our lack of faith in our ability to manage, adapt, and create benefits from change. And that thing about, as I said in the poem, that worries of what may come, if you really give yourself permission to look at how much of your thoughts are devoted to worrying about things that might happen in the future. I mean, sometimes I get quite worked up after, well, if this happens, then that'll happen, and this will happen, and I have this noble idea that I want to prevent that unnecessary thing from happening. A lot of times it doesn't even happen. It's just some self-indulgence on my part of the think that I think I can predict the future. And I'd like to move away from spending energy trying to predict the future and devote more of my life force and spiritual commitment to creating the future that I want. And that requires me to harness and use change as a vehicle to move me toward my aspirations, rather than being concerned about what might happen to me. So I want to point out that while I may lack faith in my ability to handle change, the evidence of my ability is overwhelming. I've managed to work through all the change I have encountered so far. All of it. Here I am, living, breathing, smiling, feeling pretty good, actually. And not only have I done this, I'm really not that special, other than to Nikki. Each of you has also done this. Whatever change has come up in your life that you've encountered, you've engaged it and you've worked through it. You have that ability, and the evidence of your accomplishment can fortify your faith. So if change is inevitable, let's explore how faith impacts our perception and response to change. And if we fortify our faith, that should empower us to perceive change differently. Maya Angelou guided us with these words: if you do not like something, change it. If you do not like something, change it. Get busy. If you can't change it, change your attitude about it. Don't settle for complaining. If you're going to change one thing, change your complaining, because that's really not helping anybody. So, picking up on what Maya Angelou said, I thought, well, what are attitudes toward change that we could explore? So, I did a little creation here of what I consider to be attitudes toward change or levels of conscious behavior. I realized they're mostly just coping mechanisms for the challenge/opportunity of life. There's 4 of them that I picked out. There's no PhD on this. This is just my thoughts. So the 4 levels are reactive, responsive, purposeful, and numb. Numb. So I'm going to start with reactive because I experience this most frequently. I think it's collective consciousness sort of accepts reactive attitudes toward change as common. Many more, when you're reactive to change, you're really in the attitude of a victim. We probably don't like to say that out loud because we want to be reactive, but we don't want to be thought of as a victim. But I think it's fair to be honest, because with honesty comes clarity, and with clarity can come movement of better decisions. So when you're reactive, I think that's an instinctive position. I mean, certainly when I see the snake and I recoil, that's a good thing if the snake is in a biting mood. I should give the snake space. But we react like so many things in our life or poisonous reptiles that aren't. You know, we elevate our concerns about things. And I think one of the reasons we do that is because we have a certain feeling of power. But it's a false power. It's just more of an adrenaline rush. Or when I'm yelling at someone, not that I ever have, but if I were yelling at someone, you start to feel it in your body. You get tense. You get your chemicals going, whatever those are. Your blood rushes to certain parts, and at least you feel like you're doing something, but it's really not that useful. If we're reactive, it's really an indication that we're operating from fear. And we actually try to create a sense of inner peace by intimidating others. You ever have someone that you say, oh, you got to walk on eggshells around Bruce? You got to be careful how you treat him. So it's sort of like our reactiveness creates a little zone of I don't know if I should call it safety. But I bet each of you can recognize that you're reactive. I was reactive on the way here. I thought, man, I got to crumple up the message and throw it away. Because Nikki said something, and I'm like, no, I got it. I'm like, oh, well, that was very reactive. And the path out of reaction is the path of healing. And a lot of the work is just like, for example, anybody have triggers? Certain things that trigger you? Now, part of the path of healing is accepting that we have triggers, but then we have to remember not to nurture and feed them. Well, that's just my trigger. I use that when I need it. Never say the word boo to me. But actually, we want to heal past our triggers, because usually the triggers are concealing some insecurity that we have. Some separation from our understanding of how truly divine and wonderful and beautiful we are and whole. We think we're not pretty enough or strong enough or smart enough or acceptable enough or loved enough, or we have some insecurity we're compensating for, and that ends up creating a trigger that we react from. So we want to grow past that, and the path of growth is often, and I want to say always, but at least often, aided and embedded by faith, an increase in faith, or just a leaning into faith. Now, you can go two ways from reactive. You can go to responsive. And as you heal those things and realize, I used to be quite triggered by people suggesting that I wasn't smart, because I put a lot of value in being smart growing up. I think that's how I kind of impressed adults and peers, maybe, because I had a lot of trouble connecting on other, more simple ways. I'll mention it now. I'll mention it again in a few moments. It's hard to outrun your shadow. But when you're responsive, you're more of a creator than a victim. You're not subject to the consequence of your environment, but you see your environment as something that you can interact and play with. You see change as an opportunity rather than a requirement that you have to do. And so when you're in a responsive mode, you're creating inner peace by responsibility. You know that my experience is my choice, regardless of what's happening. And so this is where Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning helps us as a guide. And Viktor said, everything can be taken from a man but one thing: the last human freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This is Viktor Frankl speaking in Man's Search for Meaning. Great book, a lot of insights, in complete agreement with Maya Angelou, who said it in different words. But the power that I choose my experience, that's something else. So now when you see change, it's like, okay, that's changing. What can I do with it? And by the way, as you go to the next level, but before I go to purposeful, I just want to talk a little bit about numb. Because that one came at me sort of late. I just had reactive, responsive, purposeful. I thought that's great. And I thought, you know what? Sometimes people don't make it to responsive. They get overwhelmed in reactive, and they get exhausted, and they just go away. Sometimes this is the path that leads to addictive behaviors. And sometimes people just get quiet. They just pull into their shell, they withdraw. There's probably certain times, by the way, I want to make sure I say this. You're not going to be just one of these levels. You're going to be all of them at some point, maybe every day. What I'm trying to encourage is you to recognize, oh, I'm being reactive. Do I want to shift it? By the way, just asking that question moves me to responsive. Do you see that? As soon as I become aware that I'm doing something, I've moved from my base brain, which is just instinctively reacting, reflexively, and my front brain that's saying, oh, why am I acting that way? As soon as I ask a question, I'm moving to responsibility. That's the first step. Brings me into curiosity, brings me into possibility, and it leaves me with choice. I choose. But numb is where I withdraw, get disconnected, shut down, shut off, isolate. And I'm trying to create peace by avoidance. Stop the world, I want to get off. I heard that in the 70s. I think it was a play or something. Yeah. Sometimes you do need to stop things, to pause things. But what we learn in our faith is that we don't need to do that by numbing ourselves with drugs or substances or just being alone. We can do it with stillness. We can get the same power by going into prayer and meditation and resting our soul in stillness. We can still take a break from the chaos of everybody else's energy and be at one with our spiritual center. So stillness is an alternative to the reason people go to numb, but numb is a little easier to get to in our culture. As we move beyond responsiveness, what's next? Purposeful. I'm more than just handling my situation and knowing I get to pick the best path and take advantage of whatever changes amongst me, to actually aligning my choices with a higher purpose. The path from responsive to purposeful is the path of clarity. Getting really clear on what it is that is me. What is that is important to me? What is it that's mine to do? In purposeful attitude, I create my inner peace by alignment. Knowing that whatever I'm about, I'm in alignment with my purpose. A big purpose for me is to encourage curiosity. I'm doing it right now, and it feels good to me. The path forward, by the way, you don't have to stop at purposeful. The path forward in purposeful attitude is the path of fulfillment, which is what I was just describing. Because you will feel it like, I am choosing my life, and I am choosing to do the life that I aspire to create. And you're going to feel good about that. Now, that doesn't mean everything you do is going to be good or feel good. There's going to be a lot of clumsy messiness along the way. Yeah, that's just part of the grist of the mill of humanity, you know? Being human, being physically here in the material world, is not clean and elegant like the spiritual world. You know, we're gonna get a few scrapes and bumps along the way. That's just part of knowing that we're alive. But when we're living in the attitude of numb and reactive, we're going to encourage a lot of codependency. But when we move up to responsive and purposeful, we're going to nurture a lot of co-creation, and that's going to be great. So, it's hard to outrun your own shadow. I mentioned that. I met Noah's roommate's mother and her daughter-in-law the other day at the farmer's market, and Noah said, "Oh, I heard you met Jordan." And Jordan told me that within 30 seconds she knew you were my dad. Noah said, "How?" She goes, "I can't tell you how, but I just knew it. Just the energy, the mannerisms, the whatnot." So he can't outrun my shadow. To some degree. I don't see it. He doesn't see it as much, but others see it. And even though I look at my brothers, I think we're all different. People see us, oh, that's a price. So we have this shadow, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing or not. Again, once I'm aware that I have a shadow, but what makes your shadow go away, by the way? Well, when the bright light of truth is shining directly down upon you, you have no shadow. So the light of truth is the path of outrunning your shadow, okay? But you're going to become aware that you're becoming your parents. I don't know how many times, like, shut the refrigerator. There's nothing in there from the last time you looked, which was a minute ago. Teenagers look. Turn off that light. What are you trying to, close that door. You're trying to heat the universe. I don't know, just little things that our parents said. And you're going to hear yourself repeating things that your parents said, even though you spent most of your life saying, "I'm never going to be my mom." So the way we outrun our shadow is by changing our attitude about change and embracing change, and particularly becoming aware of the change needed in me. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. Leo Tolstoy. So, purposeful behavior. Something happened. I need these. So sometimes when we think purposeful, everybody thinks, oh, I need to get big, I need to get epic, I need to go out there and start UNICEF or Doctors Without Frontiers or one of these big world-changing things. That's a trap. Believing that it's your job to save the world, that you don't need to do that. Now, you might do those things. If that's in alignment with what your purpose is, then go for it. But don't feel like if you're not saving the world, you're not enough. Because that's just going to bring up an insecurity that's going to bring you back to being reactive and maybe push you all the way to numb. Relax. Listen. Find out who you are to be. And the clearer you get on your purpose, the easier it will be for you to use the power of the greater yes to say no to things. Because sometimes we just react and our circumstances say, well, I have to do this, and then you go do that, and the whole time you're doing it, you're moaning, complaining about it. So 2 things you can do different. You can change your attitude about doing it. Like I just went down to Tennessee in 100-degree, 105 with the heat index, to move my brother out of his house. It was not a fun job. But I made it fun because I recognized that I was starting to mope about it. I'm like, hey, I don't have to have that experience. I'm having a very unique experience with my brother. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I did sweat a lot. Changing the world and influencing others sound grand, yet that can be a noble camouflage for meddling in other people's business. Efforts to change others are rarely successful and are a distraction from living one's own life purpose. So follow Gandhi. Be the change you want to be in the world. Just be it. You don't have to tell anybody what else to do. You don't have to create anything for somebody else. Just be you. That's enough. It's wonderful. You are wonderful. Influenced by your example, illuminate us with the light of your being. Back to Maya Angelou. We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. Egg, larva, pupa, butterfly. You're all of those. So relax. Have a sense of urgency without being urgent. Breathe deep. Practice patience. Extend grace. Share love as you evolve in faith toward the fulfillment of your divine purpose. Now is the time Make embracing change your superpower. Capture the opportunity of the moment. So it is.